Welcome to the Red Text,
a crossroads of the holy and heretical.
Join us now for another episode in Unholy Communion.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Red Text podcast. We are so very excited for this episode because we do have a special guest here with us. We have Ramona Martinez, who is joining us from all the way on the other side of the country. From me, anyway. Me and Ryan are on the West Coast, and Ramona is on the East Coast. So yeah, she's you know what? I'm gonna let her introduce herself. So why don't you go ahead and do that?
Right. Hey y'all. Did you hear that? Sai wanted to introduce himself. My cat Cyclops is, for those listening on audio, you'll probably hear him meow, and he's currently attacking me. But aside from wrangling an incorrigible cat, I am an artist. I do mostly lino cut prints, a lot of icons, particularly of the Virgin Mary, and yeah, I guess like doing art about the Virgin Mary sort of like made my spiritual life burst open. And so that, yeah, I guess that was the beginning of it. And I also I want to say, for the sake of this podcast, and we could start maybe talking about my religious background, but I actually didn't grow up Catholic, but I did grow up with a Catholic dad who was like, my kids are not going to be raised in the Catholic Church, but we still very much grew up hearing about angels and saints. And my dad, when he was 18, got in a really bad car wreck where he was thrown through the front of the windshield. And he always told us about how an angel picked him up by the back of his shirt and helped him walk towards the road. So it's this sort of sense of there being this unseen world within the church. And I grew up Episcopalian, so Catholic light basically. But yeah, so that sort of made me kind of go sideways into it. And yeah, I'll pause there, I guess. But
okay, I just want to make a note to Ryan in editing Ryan, listen to me now. We're gonna do a really quick check-in, which you can put in the beginning of this video, so before Ramona starts talking, so we can do a check-in within the three of us to see how everyone's doing, and then just edit it accordingly. Yeah, because okay. I just realized that we introduced Ramona and I didn't introduce the two of you. So
yeah, totally.
How's everyone doing today? I am joined by my wonderful co-hosts, Ryan and Burgundy. How's everyone doing since we last spoke?
Tired. In need of sleep. But surviving. I'm falling in love with Wednesdays. I don't know, the more I work with mercurial energy, the more I just like Wednesdays. It's just such a liminal space in the week, neither here nor there. But going to the museum tomorrow, so I'm excited for that. There's going to be a Filipino ensemble playing some pre-colonial music, which I didn't know, and so that's going to be really fun.
Oh my god, that's
amazing. That sounds so cool.
Yeah, it's at my favorite museum in San Francisco. It's the Asian Art Museum, and they have this one exhibit right now that's an interactive walkthrough exhibit where it's projections on the wall, but when you move and touch stuff, it interacts, and there's butterflies and flowers. It's really neat, so I'm excited for that tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, that's why I love San Francisco so much. You're surrounded by Filipinos. They're everywhere. They're coming out of the cracks in the sidewalk, man.
Literally.
Oh, those are my people. How about you, Burgundy? How's your week going?
I think I'm tired too. Tired seems to be a theme. I don't know. I've had this the baby's been waking up every day at 3 a.m. So that's been fun.
Not the witching hour.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that it's not a coincidence.
We literally call it his witching hour now because it just seems like every night he's like, oh, it's 3 a.m. It's my time. So
that's my cue. Wake up, mommy.
It's my cue. So I've been tired, but I'm good. Other than that, I'm good.
Well, I'm glad that you guys are doing well because I had a rough week. It was rough, like sandpaper on your scrotum rough. Like that was bad. I got it was interesting because the week started out really cute because the weather was really cute. So I was able to dress really cute. You know what I mean? I started wearing my nice, not long coats and things like that. So I was in a really good mood. And then yesterday my car got broken into. They didn't steal anything, but they broke my window. And apparently it's becoming this thing in my area where because I called my mechanic and my mechanic was like, oh yeah, this is kind of happening now, just like around the area. Folks are just kind of breaking into people's cars to see if there's anything to steal. And if they're not, they just move on. You know what I mean? So that was just something that I had to deal with. And then things with work. But I guess I'm on the same page as you guys. I'm just kind of tired, just kind of drained. And I'm going to kind of go with what Ryan said. I'm always so excited for Wednesdays because Wednesdays are the days that we record and I get to sit down with you guys and talk and decompress and kind of just talk about beautiful, holy, magical things, and it just puts me in a really good mood for the rest of the week. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
But you know where we can find rest? Who will always have her arms open for us? Mother Mary, who I think is going to be a mother, who I think is going to be the topic of discussion today with our special guest, Ramona.
Yes. So, and then this is where you're going to insert Ramona's thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, ping-ponged around there a little bit.
Yeah, just ping-pong around there. I have to get a little bit more organized minded when it comes to that stuff. But Ramona, before we get into that, how are you doing?
I'm also tired. Yeah, it's been like I feel like all the planets started going forward, right? Like a couple weeks ago. And so it's definitely been pedaled to the metal. And sleep deprived for sure. But you know, it's okay. I feel like blessed to have good food to eat, and I've really been leaning hard into the herbs for like immune support and all that stuff. So that's been good. Yeah.
Amen.
Ramona, sorry, I wanted to ask you something. So did you get into doing like Marian art and lino cuts prior to like becoming spiritually involved with her? Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, that's right. So I think like, sorry, my cat is pretty loud. Cool. Yeah, I think I had been observing Dia de los Muertos and having like an ancestral practice like after moving out of my parents' house, probably since I was like 25 or so. But and that was around when I started going back to church as an adult after a long time of kind of being agnostic. And yeah, and like I think that was around like that kind of culminated during like my Saturn return, which like for those of you who don't know is a time when you sort of like figure out your path. And I started doing art seriously, and the Virgin Mary was the subject matter that I always like did again and again. And when you're first starting out as an artist, it's kind of hard to know like what your art is about, and so you kind of just gravitate towards like more representational things that are easy to do, like often images that like we know well or whatever. And she just kind of kept knocking on my door every time I sat down to make a piece of art, and that kind of led me to like looking more into her. And then there was a series of synchronicities. Actually, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I went to Irish music camp, totally random. I was like a super serious tin whistle player for about 2 years, and I like went to this Irish music camp to like learn tin whistle with this one woman from like Boston who's this like Irish woman. She's incredible. And I like signed up for her class, and I was the only person in the class along with like one other person. So she and I got to talk a lot. And she told me like, oh, I was telling her about an ex or something. And she was like, oh, I can see in your heart that you're really hurting about it. Like, I really think you should pray to the Virgin Mary. And she told me this incredible story about how like she lost her husband and her mother in like within 6 months of each other. And she like couldn't like find it within her to like go back to church for like a long time. And she's like, the first time I went back to church, there was a missionary there from Croatia who the Virgin had been appearing to for many years. And he said that when she appeared, she always said the same thing, which was, if you knew how much I love you, it would move you to tears. And when my tin whistle teacher told me this, I immediately started crying. And I also ended up like meeting someone on that trip who had written a book about the rosary, and how to pray it. And so it was like, Mary was like, you need to pray the rosary. And so I started doing that, and that's how I met Michael, aka Saintly Tarot Mystic, and did his beautiful Way of the Rose Rosary Circle. And yeah, so I think like Mary started out just being a purely artistic interest, but then she really came in hard, which was awesome. So
you literally just gave me goosebumps.
Same.
Yeah,
gave me
love
goosebumps.
that.
That's beautiful. I love the quote you were saying, how if you knew about how much she loves you, it'd bring you to tears. Because today, funny enough, I was researching Our Lady of Sorrows, and I just started meditating and thinking about how much Mary loves not just Christians and Catholics, but anyone. And I was sitting at my desk at work, tearing up, I can't cry at work right now. Why am I tearing up at my desk? But it's so true. She's just so full of love, and I love how obvious she is with her signs too. I would love to hear from you, you guys, Fonzie and Burgundy. What were the signs that Mary sent you that you kind of were just oh, light bulb off, she's there? Because I feel like she's not subtle. She shows up.
Not at all. I actually made a post one time about this. Is that it was right when the pandemic started getting bad again, and we knew the kids were going to be staying home again for the year, and I was kind of having a moment of crisis. How am I going to do this? Educating 6 kids at 6 different levels, trying to survive this pandemic. I was just super overwhelmed. And I left to go pick up curbside pickup one day. And for some reason, I don't remember why, maybe I got out to open the trunk of the car. I'm not sure. But for whatever reason, I got out of the car, and right there on the ground was a Guadalupe prayer card. Just right there in the parking lot where I was. It's just little ways like that. I feel like she's just always hey, I'm here for you. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. What you said, she does show herself very loudly, but it's little things. They kind of well, this is just my experience with her, because they're kind of just things that kind of tell her I'm here, but I just want you to pay attention. Do you know what I mean? I don't want you to make a big deal out of it, but I'm here. You asked me to be here. Now I'm paying attention. I'm here for you. You know what I mean? Because the first thing that popped into my head after you asked me that question was, excuse me, about a month ago, I was going on a trip, and for some reason I was called to go to church and pray, and they have this gorgeous Mary altar there, and I went there every day to pray before my trip, because I was really anxious about the trip, because of COVID and a whole bunch of things. And it was also out of the country. I was scared of how it was going to be coming back. There was a whole thing, I just had travel anxiety. So the day before I left for my trip, I went for my last prayer before my trip. I was leaving, and there's never anyone there. Usually I'm there by myself. And I'm walking out, and there's another person. So there's only 2 people in this church. And I saw this person. I could see them from my periphery, and I was just kind of done. I was ready to head out. I went to the well where the holy water was. I did the sign of the cross. I was literally right about to walk out the door, and she asked me a question. This woman, the most adorable little Filipino woman. And I'm sorry if you guys can hear that. My neighbor has, I think, a dump truck for a car. So I'm sorry if you guys can hear that. She asked me a question. I didn't know the answer to it. I don't remember what the question was, but I was like, oh, I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I just come here to pray. I remember those were my words. I don't know why I said that, but I just said that. And I go, I just come here to pray. And she goes, oh, me too. I was literally right about to walk out the door. And she goes, wait. I have to give this to you. And she reaches into her purse and she hands me a miraculous medal.
That's amazing.
That just gave me chills again.
I know. I almost teared up like right in front of her. I was like, thank you so much. Like, this is something I appreciated it. Like, I never appreciated anything in like stranger giving me anything ever in my entire life. It was the most incredible experience ever. And I was like, I went to my car and I sat there for like a good 10 minutes. I was like, holy shit, it worked. Like, that was fucking wild. And I just sat there just like reflecting. I was like, this is like, she's paying attention to you. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. And now she's willing to work with you, you know? So.
Interesting. I think that's a good place to slide into another topic. Like, when you say like working with Mary, you know, like, how did you all begin working with Mary? Or would you even call it that? Would you call it working with Mary, or what would you call? Because to me, it's more like a devotion. I'm not really sure I necessarily would call it working with her. What do you guys think?
Well, could you elaborate more on that, Burgundy, for us? Like, since you differentiate between working with and devotion, how would you describe your relationship with her?
I guess because I feel like I have such a close relationship with her. I mean, I guess I am working with her. I've just never thought of it that way. I just sort of feel like we're in communion with one another. And so I feel like when I petition other saints, like for specific work, that's working. But I don't know, this feels different, I guess. Like, it's some sort of elevated level of work, I suppose. I don't know.
This might sound a little, I don't know. I don't want to say poetic. I don't think that's what I'm trying to say. But I think when you said like working with her, I didn't really necessarily start working with her. I just started experiencing her from like a very visceral sense of the word, where it was just like, I don't know, I was just in my head, I just felt like kind of what Ramona was what she touched on, where it's like for some reason I was just called to do it, and then I just started to experience her in some way, and then she let me know that she was paying attention to me.
Yeah, for me, it started when I read, I think we touched on this book in our first episode, but when I read The Way of the Rose back in 2020, and then started praying the rosary again, just kind of like to more so as a devotion towards the divine feminine, not even towards Mary, but it's kind of like Mary's the one who popped up through me picking up the practice of the rosary. And obviously growing up Catholic, like, she most resonated with me because that's who I was familiar with. And yeah, then just praying the rosary, and just, again, she was not subtle. She would show up, she was sending signs like left and right. I'm like, okay, this is pretty neat, because I never really had like a spirit or anything like that make its presence so obviously known to me. So that's what kind of drew me into Mary, and just feeling also just drawn back to the faith, because I was always even though I was raised Catholic, I always kind of wavered between like, I don't need the faith, it's not for me, but also like wanting something, or knowing there was something greater, but not knowing what it is that fulfilled me. And now the rosary brought me back to Catholicism, so now here I am again. And Ramona, I wanted to ask you, as well as answering this question, so you said you grew up Episcopalian, you had a Catholic dad, but how would you describe like your faith and background now? But obviously the Mary question can come first. Like, how would you describe your relationship with her?
Yeah, well, I think like my faith nowadays really kind of like, she's sort of the sun, and all of the other things are kind of rays that come out from her. Like, all the saints that I've developed relationships with, or angels, you know, to me they all kind of stem back to her, just because it felt like working with the rosary and like doing it in a very contemplative, like path working way, really started to open up like channels, and being open to like images and thoughts about her, and kind of like her place in this faith, and like how important she is to it. And also too, as an artist, like I think I was initially drawn to her because she is such a radical figure in the Bible, you know, like the Magnificat is like the most radical prayer I think in the whole book. And then in her apparitions too, like Our Lady of Guadalupe like insists to Juan Diego, like, no, you are the one that I've like chosen to go and speak to the bishop. Like, you're not just some, you know, guy, like, you know, I've picked you. And it just, like, she's just so on the side of justice and you know, the least of those, or whatever this like scripture is exactly, but you know, like, yeah, the least of these are, and I just think like she just shows us that we're not like the least to her, like we're all the most important to her.
Amen.
So yeah. What was your second question, Ryan? I forgot.
I'm sorry, I like threw so much at you at once. No, thank you for answering the first one. The second one was, I was asking, so you said you grew up Episcopalian, had a Catholic father, but how would you currently describe kind of like your practice and your faith? Like, do you have a label for it? And if so, what is that label?
Totally. You know, I say these days that like, when talking about my art and writing, it's like reclaiming Christianity for like misfits and radicals. But when talking about my spirituality, it's more like I identify as Christian, like an Episcopalian, but like among people who are witchy, it's like, oh yeah, I do like folk Catholicism, or like I usually more say like saint devotion, because my actual like magic that I do is actually more ceremonial than folk magic. But I kind of like Burgundy and I were talking the other day about the definition of folk magic that she told y'all about on the first episode, which is like folk magic is when you reclaim the power of the church like for yourself, and you become like the guiding force through which to explore this like unseen world of spirits. And so like if that's the definition of folk Catholicism that we're going with, which I like a lot, like I would identify as a folk Catholic, I guess, but at the same time, like I didn't grow up Catholic, so that label like doesn't totally fit. But yeah, that's like the world that I'm inhabiting, definitely.
Absolutely. I think I understand how you feel like maybe you don't fit into that weird kind of shape in that box, but we kind of touched on a little bit in our first episode where you don't have to fit into a certain box to call yourself a folk Catholic, because we were talking about lay people and how, you know, you don't have to there's no distinction per se as to how you should define yourself as a folk Catholic. So I feel like regardless, because I didn't grow up Catholic either, I grew up in a very folky kind of a Christian, Jesus-centered kind of a household, do you know what I mean? But now that I'm kind of developing more of like a relationship with Mary and the saints, I'm kind of blending those two worlds together into this really weird, awesome amalgamation of traditions and practices. And it's weird, it feels really strange, and I understand that you know, you don't want to really kind of feel like you're out of place, but also don't want to, I guess, step on any toes to call yourself a particular label or whatever. But you know, if you are what you say you are, but I also don't feel like you should limit yourself to saying like you're not because you didn't grow up within a certain faith. Because someone told me, oh, I've been Catholic for, you know, 2 months, and I'm like, well, you're just as Catholic as anybody else to me, you know. So
yeah, I really appreciate y'all saying that, and also that y'all are like going to be expanding on that in this podcast, because yeah, like my presumption was like, oh, well, I didn't grow up Catholic, so I guess I can't, like, if I identify as folk Catholic, does that imply that I'm Catholic? And so that's, yeah, I'm super glad y'all are unpacking those terms.
I grew up in like a very almost cultish, non-denominational church, so I didn't grow up Catholic either.
Yeah. Cool.
Ramona, I'm sure a lot of our listeners tuned in because they want to learn more about, folk Christianity, Catholicism, and so some of them may be unfamiliar with ceremonial magic. Would you care to elaborate a little bit on what that is and how that fits into your practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like around, let's see, over the course of the pandemic, I think like a lot of people like really, were kind of forced to go internally and like really like, not only deal with the shadow, but I think also gave us an opportunity to like see our strengths and like become stronger like people during that time. And like for me, a big part of that was like trying to get as much healing as possible, and some of that involved some like meditative work, like some hypnosis, some like shamanic journeying and stuff. And once I started doing that, I started like dabbling in trying to channel, and around the same time got exposed to the work of Damien Eccles, who is a ceremonial magician who some listeners might know. He, I guess, is most famous for being imprisoned. He was on death row for a number of years, I think like over 10 years.
Almost 18, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. During the Satanic Panic in the 80s, he was convicted of murder, I'm pretty sure. And anyway, so like in prison, he developed this whole magical system based on like researching. I think a lot of it comes from like the OTO and like magical lodges. But basically what he does, which I really appreciate about ceremonial magic, which I'm kind of a nerd about just because I got into the Glitch Bottle podcast over the pandemic and went down this deep rabbit hole of being like, what the hell are these people talking about? The first time you hear like people talk about ceremonial magic, you're like, oh my God, half these words are Latin. What are they even saying? They're summoning demons. This is crazy. Like you're like, oh my God. But Damien Eccles is incredible because he just really like boils it down to the most basic parts. He's like, this is the LBRP, the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. This is like how you make your safe space if you're going to invoke an angel. And then this is how you invoke it. And these are the prayers you should say. And it's like so democratic, I feel like, because ceremonial magic is like the grimoires, right? Those were written by people who were like priests who could stay home all day doing these rituals, right? Go cut down a tree, like a branch from a walnut tree on the crescent moon. It's just like insane amounts of like steps to do any sort of like ritual. But Damien Eccles is very like, not only can you do this, but it will work, and the archangel will come and like be there for your prayer and like help you, like maybe in a way that isn't super obvious, but like over time, just like any devotional work, the more you do ritual, kind of like the stronger the connections get. But anyway, all that to say, I would say my practice is 90% devotional, which is like praying and petitioning through prayer. And if someone is like, I have an emergency, will you please do a spell for me? Then I'll do like the LBRP. And before I do that, I really try to like visualize intensively, like really spending time, like 10 minutes, like envisioning roots going down into the earth, giving thanks to Mother Earth, and like feeling her support and feeling that completely before I start any working. But it takes a lot out of you if you're doing it right, and so I try to not, if I can help it. So yeah, that was a long answer.
No, I love that answer.
You're totally fine. I
love that answer because I totally understand. Listen, sometimes when I do something as simple as lighting a candle for my child self, it sounds so simple. I have a picture of a younger me where I remember that was not a great time for myself, and I just want to kind of devote a little bit of time for that person who is struggling, and I just say a little thing like, hi, how are you? I hope you're fine. I hope you're good. Light the candle and then walk away. That for some reason takes a lot out of me. Something as simple as lighting a candle and saying hi to someone, it takes a lot of energy to do it. So being able to kind of distinguish what feels right to you when it comes to how you perform your how you perform within your practice, I think adds to the magic, you know what I mean, because it's so personal and it's so customized to what you do and all that stuff. So I think it's important for folks to understand. It's like if you pick up a book that's very ceremonial and very like, these are the steps that you need to do to make these things work, and it will work, also kind of to see where things plug into your own practice, because sometimes it works just from lighting a candle and saying hi, you know.
I totally agree. And actually, I was talking to my partner Chris the other day about the difference between devotional work versus doing things through magic, and how we feel like we've noticed there's like an element of chaos if you do it through magic, like versus doing it through devotional work. Like I think about like if I were to ask an angel for money, like if I did a money spell, like I'm not sure how that would necessarily, if I wasn't like super specific and didn't say like with harm towards none, maybe I could get in like a car accident and like an insurance thing, like, you know, I feel like prayer is just a little bit safer. I don't know why, but something about doing rituals seems like it kind of sets off like a bit of more of a pinball effect. I don't know. That's just like my personal gnosis, but like prayer just seems safer somehow in terms of
with that said, Ramona, I'm curious, have you worked with angels in both like a folk context as well as ceremonial context? And if so, have you noticed kind of like a difference in results from the two?
I would say my most like obviously successful spells have been with Michael. And I think like that it's interesting because now that I think about it, I think that the spirits that I work with ritually or in magic are not the same that I pray to for my own daily needs. For whatever reason. Like I'll do protection spells for other people ask for protection, like I'll work with Michael that way. Or one time my friend's power was out in Austin and she asked me to petition Michael like in a spell, and like right when the candle burned to the bottom, she like messaged me and said her power was back on or whatever. But it's hard to tell sometimes, like, you know, for me, like how much his prayers have like affected my life, you know, or my prayers to him have affected my life in that way, because I'm working with him magically usually for other people, I guess, not for myself so much. So it's hard to like say, like measure the results, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Ryan, what would you say is the difference? But like, to maybe for people who are unaware, like how would you describe working with an angel, like just normal petitioning, veneration versus like a folk magic way?
I think Ramona touched on it really well, just because like how she was differentiating the kind of like chaotic results that can come from like the ceremonial or ritualistic work compared to kind of like, I don't want to say like the will of God when you kind of just do it through prayer, but
right.
It's very much very that, like
very
that.
And so I love Damien Eccles as well, and in his book Angels and Archangels, like, you know, there's certain archangels, there's a difference between the archangels of the Kabbalistic tree of life versus just like the regular like archangels of the certain days of the week or the certain planets, right? So like they may have the same name, but like depending on what you're trying to do, you're going to go two different routes. And so that's already an instance there where it's like same angel but like different angel with different results. But I guess in my own practice, it's mainly just been through folk magic and praying the rosary. So usually, again, I always kind of use Mary as my intermediary, because I feel like since she has my best interest in mind, it's not going to be how something like Ramona pointed out of like, if I'm praying for money, I'm pretty sure Mary's not going to put me in a car accident to get me an insurance check. Like it's going to be something that's, you know, for my, I guess, like quote unquote highest good.
Yeah.
Whereas like how Ramona touched on, you might just directly petition an angel or do a ceremonial ritual with an angel, and then bam, you're in a car accident and get that insurance check. So I think that's really the big difference between the two, is kind of, I guess, Angels are just such divine intelligences that like you ask them for something and they're gonna do like whatever needs to be done. Whereas in a folk way, it's kind of just like, I feel like your, I guess, quote unquote spiritual core is more so looking out for you and your mind, body, and spirit, and like pushing you in like a I don't want to say better path, because you're gonna get like a result either way, but in a path that's gonna be of less harm, I guess, probably.
Yeah, I love that idea of thinking of your putting the work forward in different ways as to going through prayer and going through magic, and how it hones it in. It kind of organizes all of the chaos and kind of makes it a little bit more linear, as to what Ramona touched on, where it doesn't have as much of a pinball effect. I love that idea, and it kind of puts it, I'm able to kind of visualize what that looks like, and it's a great way to look at it. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for bringing that up, the two of you.
Have either of you, Burgundy or Fonzie, worked with any ceremonial magic in your practices?
No, I don't do. No, I'm a folk witch through and through. I think me and Ramona actually talked about this one day, where we were talking about like the differences and how sometimes folk magic kind of looks like you're just throwing herbs on shit and being like, "I'm done, bitch," and it's me, like I'm that bitch. So no, I think it's beautiful, and it's just not something that I've stepped into.
I think it's wonderful, and I think folks should keep doing it, because one, I love seeing it, and I do learn a lot from what folks do with ceremonial magic. Yeah. But I like to equate my magic with my cooking. If I ever get to meet any of you, I'm going to cook for you, because I'm an incredible cook. When I cook, I can't follow a recipe. I can't do it. I can, but it just doesn't feel right afterwards. It doesn't taste the way I want it to. And because my practice is very intuition based, I like to deviate away from sometimes from text that are like, okay, so you need to do this, do this. And sometimes I'm just like, okay, I'm going to do this. I don't like doing this. I'm going to do this instead in place of this. And it's just like making, a delicious dish for me. So it just works out better for me if I let my intuition, what my body feels I need to do in regards to crafting something. So ceremonial magic, I'd never say never. I might deviate a little bit further, further into my craft. I might become a little bit more ceremonial when it comes to things I want to, if something does resonate with me, then of course I'm never going to say that I'm never going to do it. But at the same time, it's just as of right now, what my practice looks like, it's very, I'll take what plugs into what I do and then fill in the blanks where I feel like I should.
Totally. Ramona, have you ever kind of intertwined ceremonial magic with like your devotional practice to Mary? Like, has those two things ever crossed?
It's so interesting. I don't really work with Mary ceremonial magic wise. I don't know why. It's just always been angels as a default. Honestly, I think that is a Damien Eccles influence. And I just kind of have the hots for angels, and I want to like talk to them and like channel them, and I just think they're amazing. So that's who I work with ritualistically for the most part.
I've got the hots for angels too.
Could you touch a little more on channeling for those who are unfamiliar with it? Like I've never really channeled, and I don't really know if either Burgundy or Fonzie, if either you have. So I would love if you could share a little bit about channeling, Ramona.
Yeah, totally. So channeling is really, it's like really a hard thing to get into, because it really taps into the wound of how much do I trust myself and how much do I trust my intuition, and so I highly recommend it for people who have that thing going on, because the way to channel really is, and you can do it like, I've never done like ayahuasca or whatever. Some people like say that they have like a psychedelic experience and then something opens up in them, blah, blah, blah. But I think that anyone can talk to spirit or access this sort of like to get answers by like kind of using your imagination and trusting that you're not just making things up, but rather like if you get in the right spiritual state, like and meditative, like and relaxed state, you can really like get downloads and information if you just like write down what comes to your head without second guessing it. Or you could do like talking to a tape recorder or whatever. So yeah, I've been doing it probably for about, I guess I started in like May of 2020, and I've probably only done it like five times. And usually like I'll either meditate like beforehand and do it, or I've had a lot of success doing it after working ritualistically with the angels. So after I do a spell to Saint Michael, I'll sometimes like try to do automatic writing and write down like things that I feel like are coming through. Or I have a really good friend in Austin actually, who's a really great ceremonial magician. And on Michaelmas, we did like an invocation over the phone where she like invoked him, and then I sat back and she asked him questions through me, and I tried to like give answers, like scribbling while I spoke like over a tape recorder. And yeah, like just to give you like a hint of some of the things that like he said, I feel like, yeah, so the archangels are like so amazing. They all have like, well, the two I work with are Raphael and Michael just has such like a hype energy, but is just so confident and so like reassuring. And so my friend asked him like, these are some like really difficult times we're going through, and like what advice can you offer us? Like, and he said, prayer is the most important thing you can do. He's like, it's more important than you know. And he said, if you lose your fear of death, you will be an unstoppable soldier for God. And he said, burn your despair and cynicism like logs on a fire, and like add them onto the fire during winter and invite people to your hearth. So that's like sort of the kinds of like images and phrases that like pop into my head. They're not like full paragraphs, but like these like little droplets of information will like come in. And yeah, like I said, I don't try to do it too often. I try to make sure I'm in like the right state to do it, but it's kind of weird like channeling angels, and I haven't like moved on to other saints and stuff because I feel like there's so many people in the spiritual community doing it, and it's so saturated that you think like, well, if everyone's channeling angels, then are we all right? Or like, are some people more right than others? And it just like makes you question yourself and everything. So, but yeah, that's my experience with channeling. So
that's beautiful stuff that Archangel Michael said. And it just, I always get curious about people's experiences of him, because a lot of people are like, oh, he's an asshole, he's a douchebag, he's so prideful. And then there's other people that are like, oh no, he's really cool, he's protective, he's like a father figure. So it's just like, it's very interesting to hear the two sides of how people experience the same archangel.
Totally. Yeah, it's funny too, because like Raphael is the other one that I'm close to, and I feel like I'm kind of intimidated by him and don't really know that much about his personality. Like I feel like he's mercurial, right? Like I'm a Gemini. I know like we can be enigmas, and I feel like I don't really know Raphael, but Michael is just like here I am, this is who I am, like hello, you know. So
you're 100% right. Geminis are enigmas.
Like swords blazing.
We are enigmas. And I want everyone to understand, respect the Geminis, because we are a sacred people.
It's
Do either of you guys have questions for Ramona? I feel like I've been like stealing all the questions to ask.
No, you were great.
No,
You've been keeping us on track. Yeah.
It was
No.
wonderful. Just speaking of keeping us on track, guys, we are about at the 40-minute mark. Okay, it's just, and Ramona, just so you know, we do around an hour to an hour and a half, so don't feel like you're being rushed. So.
I'm gonna need to take like a pee break if we're gonna go for an hour and a half.
Do you want to stop now? Do you want
Let's
to
take a break.
Let's do that.
Let's take a break.
Okay.
I'm just gonna pause the recording then, so we don't have to edit all this out.
Okay. Guys, that literally gave me goosebumps. Like that was.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. When she was talking about channeling Michael and what he said,
Burn
honestly,
your
all of her
despair. Burn your despair on logs and invite people to your hearth.
That
Wow.
is beautiful. I'm gonna go back in our messages to make sure I'm not forgetting to ask anything we talked about.
You touched on the how do you petition Mary, any workings you do with her. I think that's a really great conversation. Any workings that you, anything specific that she might do?
Oh, lessons she's taught? Yeah, I don't know if she's touched on anything like she's been like taught by Mary. Oh, I do want to ask, because Mary has obviously so many different facets and aspects and apparitions. If she works with just Mary as like the Blessed Mother, or if she has any specific aspects like Our Lady of Sorrows, or the Virgin Most Powerful. So we could touch on that.
I know Ramona had mentioned that she wanted to talk about Anthony. So I can bring that up just because we both have like a
great relationship. Yeah.
Saint Anthony, right?
Saint Anthony.
Oh, okay. I was like, who's Anthony?
No,
like,
no. He's my neighbor. He's the guy who lives across the street from me. Good guy.
Tony.
Tony. Ryan, can we record?
Of course, I will click play.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Of course.
Oh, anytime. Please pee anytime you need to.
Thank you so much.
You've been sharing so many amazing stories, Ramona, and there's more to come because I wanted to ask you next. Have there been any like amazing or important or miraculous lessons the Blessed Mother specifically has kind of taught you since you've developed a relationship with her?
So I think this kind of goes back to the story I told at the beginning of the episode about my tin whistle teacher who told me that story about her, about how the Holy Mother loves us so much that if we knew how much, it would move us to tears. I actually only very recently felt that, like truly felt that. And I think that really comes from my own childhood trauma about not feeling like loved and accepted by my mother, and so not having like a truly supportive, like, feminine energy in my life. It's been hard for me to think of Mary as a mother. I've really, especially like when praying the rosary, I think like I really like to imagine what it would be like to be her, like as the traditional mysteries progress. And so I think of her as more of like, not like a peer, but like someone that I can experience the Holy Spirit by like putting myself in her shoes and like trying to like feel the depth of her feelings. But like thinking about her as this external spirit who had my back, really I only came to feel that when I started praying a Guadalupe Rosary novena that I started, I want to say 13 days ago. I'm doing a 46-day long novena, and I actually found out about it through Berto's, I forget what his username is on Instagram, El Sol something. Brittany's gonna look it up for us.
Look it up.
But anyway, he has a wonderful relationship with her, and posted about it, and I noticed that in 46 days was exactly the date at the end of our Kickstarter. So it was like a sign from Guadalupe, like, hey, you need to pray this rosary for me so I can we can work together on this. And yeah, there's just such a beautiful like aspect of Guadalupe that's very much like, whatever you need, I will take care of it. Don't like forget that I'm here, and like you need anything, you just ask me. Because she's your mother, you know? And I like really started feeling that love like when I began praying that novena. So that's been amazing. And also too, like that was the image, like Guadalupe was the image that I made over and over again. So I've been praying the traditional rosary the whole time and not really feeling that love. But then when I switched to praying this particular set of mysteries, like that part really started to click for me. So I think that's a big lesson that she's teaching me, is to like accept a feminine energy that is supportive and that can give.
Absolutely, that's so beautiful. I think that was going to answer the next question I was going to
Yes.
ask, was because there's so many apparitions and facets of Mary, you know, like the Virgin Most Powerful, Our Lady of Sorrows, Guadalupe. And so I was going to say, so you would say Guadalupe is probably the one you have the most closest relationship as of right now?
Definitely, yeah.
Do either of you guys... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ramona.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I don't think I've ever like explored really any other apparition she's at. So.
Have either of you guys explored kind of, or do you guys have a particular Mary that either of you work with in your practice or have a special relationship with?
Guadalupe.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same for me. And I think it's interesting, Ramona, when you're talking about like childhood traumas and things that you're overcoming, because I really feel like Guadalupe in particular is great for people who have mother wounds, because she literally came to the people and said, I am your mother. Like, I am here for you. I'm arms wide open, whatever you need. And so I really truly feel like she is just amazing at taking those wounds and just, it's just amazing. It's so healing to have a relationship with Guadalupe.
Personally, I don't really have I don't know which aspect of Mary you would classify my version of Mary, because my version of Mary was introduced to me by my grandmother. So a lot of my association with Mary is associated with my grandmother. So she does have a lot of that very maternal, I'm going to take care of you, I made food for you, eat until your heart is content kind of, you know, grandmother feels. So I do have that sort of, and it brings me a lot of comfort. And also my actual grandmother is not subtle, just like Mary. So she's very obvious about her love, you know. She's very not subtle about how she feels about her grandkids, especially me, because I'm the eldest, so I'm like her favorite. But one of the aspects of Mary that I am really, really fascinated with, and I really want to work with closely, is it actually reminds me of this post that Ramona, this wonderful piece of art that she made that I just love. It's one of my favorite things I've ever seen, is Our Lady of Anti-Fascism. And
I love that.
I love it so much. It has like this really like Banksy feel to me, you know what I mean? It's this like against corporate America, against oppression, against you know, against all of the bad things that we're experiencing right now. And it always brings me back to even before the birth of Christ, Mary was a radical, because like she was given the message that you are going to bear a son, you are going to be pregnant out of wedlock, which is punishable by death. And she was like, let's go, let's do it. Like, I'm doing this for God, you know what I mean? I'm gonna, regardless of what the you know, what the consequences are in regards to me, I'm doing this for the greater good, you know. So she does bring a lot of motherly, maternal love, but also at the same time just radical love for folks who just are not being represented or seen or just frankly being ignored. So I love that.
Thank you for bringing up that icon, because I feel like that was a divine download from her. You know, she just kind of appeared fully formed in my head. And I really feel like it's important that, like, I feel like people, like, the common perception of anti-fascism is like black bloc, like violent people throwing like Molotov cocktails. And it's like, no, like anti-fascism at the end of the day, like, is about love and like being open. And like, I wanted her arms to be open and like have this like symbol of like peace, which is ultimately like what the struggle is for, and like freedom, right? And so she is so brave. That's like a part of what I admire so much about Mary, and so unafraid of death, you know, because she's seen it all. And so she can just like bear witness to and be this unshakable force for good. Yeah.
Totally. I would say the aspects that I work with the most, or at least have a relationship. Like you said earlier, Brittany, I don't feel like it's a working thing. I feel like as a devotee of Mary, it's just like it just feels like you're asking your mom for something. So I would say it's Our Lady of Graces, who's the one depicted on the miraculous medal. Our Lady of Mount Carmel, also known as Our Lady of the Brown Scapular, and then Guadalupe. Just because I feel like, you know, being half Filipino, like I feel like she really helps me connect back to those kind of like pre-colonial indigenous roots. And she just also like has such badass energy. Like all the other Marys give off, you know, such loving energy. Not that she won't kick ass, but like Guadalupe is like, I feel like she's also ready to fight. Like she'll like, oh, I'm your mother, I love you. Like, whose ass do I gotta kick though? Who hurt you? Like, who said something mean to you at school today?
Yeah, right. I gotta throw hands. What's his name?
Right. And then the one I was exploring today as I was researching at work was Our Lady of Sorrows, because I feel like sometimes processing grief is something really difficult for me. Like I said, just looking at the image of Our Lady of Sorrows and the was it the 7 or 8, the seven swords piercing her heart, I just like, it was bringing tears to my eyes, just because like she knew she was gonna have to suffer through the passions of, you know, her son Jesus Christ, and know that he was gonna die. And I think she's gonna be wonderful to work with in terms of like processing and releasing grief. But yeah, Our Lady of Graces, Our Lady of Mount Carmel, and which is actually the church I was baptized at, and then Guadalupe. I feel like those are probably the 3 that I have a close relationship with. And the only time Mary's appeared to me in a dream was as Our Lady of Graces and Our Lady of Mount Carmel. And it was weird seeing Mary as 2 different aspects in the same dream right next to each other. That was a trip.
Wow.
That is so cool though.
If this is any if any of you who grew up Catholic can maybe shed a little bit of light on for me, the church, there are a million churches in my area. I live in a very predominantly Hispanic and Filipino kind of community. So there are churches, Catholic churches everywhere. There was one church that is definitely not the closest to my house that I was called to, and it's the Our Lady of Lourdes. And I did a little bit of reading on it, and it's the story about the man seeing Mary in the cave in France. Is that what it was?
I think so. I'm not too well versed on Our Lady of Lourdes, but I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly. If someone can maybe, who's listening, maybe make the connection for me and DM me, that would be awesome. Or if Ramona has some insight for me, that would be incredible. I can hear you typing.
Is Our Lady of Lourdes where the miraculous medal came from? Hold on.
Here.
Yeah.
If it is, that's fucking incredible, because that's the church that the lady gave me the miraculous medal.
Yeah, it's it's Saint Bernadette and miraculous medal.
So Saint Catherine Labouré, I think that's how her name's pronounced, that was the one who received the visions of Mary that gave her the miraculous medal.
Okay, so they're different ones.
Oh, okay. That would have been cool, but that's okay.
It's still cool, nonetheless.
It's still cool. Yeah, no. It's still cool, but it would have been a little bit cooler.
I think Our Lady of Lords, if I'm right, which I wasn't about this miraculous metal, but I think it might be associated with water somehow, like living water.
Yeah. Oh, is that the one with like the well that was like had water that was curing people or like providing miracles? Because I have water. I have holy water from Lourdes.
I think so. Yeah, water brought holy water, water, lots of water. Lord's water. Yep, it's the water one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe she's letting you get some Lord's water.
I know.
Fonzie.
I'm thirsty. I'm always thirsty. I'm a thirsty bitch. Okay, cool. That's it's just a little bit of I don't know. I wanted to see if someone can make the connection. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. There is something that I do associate Mary with a lot. I with water, especially because, especially when she received the message from Gabriel, she was collecting water, so there is a certain association I do have with Mary and water. So It's interesting food for thought.
And she's like the vessel, right? She's like the Ace of Cups.
Yes.
Like, which literally has a dove.
The upside down, right.
And it has, the upside down Marian monogram in the Rider-Waite version. So.
Oh my God, Ramona, your partner Chris has like blown my mind open with his like tarot revelations and his page. There's like I've been doing tarot for like 5 years, and most of the stuff he shares, I had no clue. I love all of that. Like when he revealed the monogram on the Ace of Cups card, I was like, how did I not see that? It's like it literally in plain sight.
I know. And I was like, there was one time where I was just like, how did I never see those mountains before? Like I've been looking at this card for years. How did I not see those mountains? How did I not see that tree? You know what I mean? I'm just like, wow, you really just opened my eyes to what these cards mean.
Chris, I think, was a tarot reader in a past life, because he's been doing it for a year. Yeah, he's
now
wow.
That's in his DNA.
I know, it's crazy.
That's not fair. I'm working so hard. Tarot is so hard.
I just want to know which crossroads he went to and what he sold.
I don't know. I mean, for those of you who don't know, everyone here does, but listeners, my partner Chris dropped out of Catholic seminary and reinvented himself as a tarot reader. And so I guess Spirit kind of threw him a bone, and they were like,
highly favored.
You could still do this.
Yeah.
It's working out.
I love that so much.
Favored by God. Here are some cards. Amazing.
Speaking of cards and Mary, Ramona, how about you let us know about this amazing upcoming project you have that your Kickstarter just launched for?
Yeah, so my partner Chris and I, shortly after we met on Instagram. The algorithm brought us together, and it's true.
Love it.
And at the time, I was working on a New Testament tarot deck. And I had not gone very far. I had done 3 cards in a year, so it was going great. And like Chris and I connected, and we started talking, and he was like, what would you think about like collaborating on a Virgin Mary Oracle deck with me? And I was like, oh my God, that is exactly what I want to do. I already have a bunch of icons. Like, I love making work about her. And yeah, it was going to be so much more of like a passion project for me than this tarot thing, which seemed like huge, and I would have to hire models, and I was like, no. And Chris, like, having been through Catholic seminary, was kind of like a Marian super fan, and so he, knew all of the different titles and apparitions. And the first time he came over to my house, we like sat on the couch, like going through all these Mary books, like picking out like, what could we do? Like, oh, we should include this and this. And that was back in March. And since then we've like been working on writing posts and like posting the cards, the prints that I've been making and the cards like on our Instagram. And so we're basically trying to raise money now to pay for things like linoleum, ink for the printer, paper, all the things that we need to make 40 cards in total for the deck. And Kickstarter also like part of the incentive for giving is to get it like really awesome rewards. So we're gonna have like beautiful bandanas and t-shirts with the art from the deck on them, as well as prayer cards and original like limited edition lino cut prints. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. And then hopefully the deck will be made over the course of the year, and then we can start like pursuing like publishing it probably around December 2022. So that's the plan.
All of you folks who are listening to this, please go check out their profile, because it's some of, I shit you not, and I'm not, this is not hyperbole, it is one of the most beautiful works of art I've ever seen in my entire life. One, because I've seen folks actually do lino cuts, and that looks hard, and I'm very clumsy with my hands, so I know that is going straight into my thumb for sure. But the work that you do is absolutely stunning. And the just, do you mind kind of giving the handles before we go on with the next question? I just want to, the handles for the Visions of Mary, and then also your personal handle if you feel comfortable sharing it.
Totally, yeah. So Visions of Mary is just like it sounds, at Visions of Mary, one word, VISIONS Visions. And then my profile is at by_Ramona, RAMONA _Martinez with a Z. And yeah, that's where you can find our stuff. And Chris, my partner, is an incredible writer, and just like the guidebook that we'll like work on over the next year is gonna be just super beautiful. And I think like our big goal with the deck, because there are a couple of other Virgin Mary Oracle decks out there, but we really want to like present a version, like all of the versions of her, you know, like she's not just this like unreachable virginal mother figure. She's like, what are some of the titles we're using? Well, like Virgin Most Powerful has her holding a giant sword that's like as big as half her body, and we're gonna have like Joy of All Who Sorrow, Solace of Migrants, Empress of Hell, like all we want all.
I'm literally going to ask you about Empress of Hell, so I'm so excited about that.
That's probably I'm gonna buy 2 decks just so I can frame that card.
Yes, nice. Yeah. So we definitely like want to drive the point home that like Mary is not just for Catholics, she's not owned by the church, and furthermore she is like a gateway into this unseen world of like spirit, like and sort of like she's like a divining rod of the Holy Spirit. Like that was her, like who she was like on earth, was like she was just born with grace, you know, and the Holy Spirit like stayed with her whole life, and sort of like she and the Holy Spirit gave birth to this like new faith together. And like Mary and like can help us give birth to the Holy Spirit, or give birth to like a new version of ourselves, or I don't know. She's just like
Amen. The thing about it is, folks don't understand, when Mary was born, she was born, her mother was barren, and she was not able to conceive a child, and she prayed and she prayed and she prayed. Mary's birth was considered an immaculate conception because she was born without the burden of the original sin. So she, like what Ramona was saying, the Holy Spirit was carried, or she carried the Holy Spirit throughout her entire life, and she's an incredible being too. And then also something that I just want to piggyback on what you said about her being the gateway. I know that Burgundy has she wants to open a conversation about someone. I know that you have a question about someone. Anthony. I'm sorry. That you wanted to ask
about
Ramona.
Our mutual love for Saint Anthony.
Yep. The gateway, the boyfriend.
The boyfriend. Our crush.
Oh my gosh, you're blushing.
I
I
don't,
am
because
legit blushing right now. Yeah.
he has that effect. It's not.
Honestly, yeah. No, go. You start, Burgundy. I want to hear.
I think I think we kind of all start out working with St. Anthony the same way. We lose something that's very important to us, and we ask him to look around because we need something. But I think one of the things that was just very unexpected for me was that once you start working with him on a regular basis, he tends to kind of show up in unexpected ways for you, and for me anyway. And instead of finding lost objects, he was finding these little pieces of myself that needed like sort of like a paternal nurturing, and healing those parts of myself to make me more open and receptive to Christ, because there was a lot to unpack there with me and my relationship with Christ. And I feel like Anthony was like a stepping stone for me to be able to reclaim that relationship with Christ.
I love that so much, and I've never thought of Anthony that way, even though he's like, usually when St. Anthony's depicted, he's holding the Christ child, which is like a vision that he had of Jesus. And I really am going to start pursuing that, because I've just never thought of that, and I've really wanted to go back to working with Jesus. Like, I think that I've gone so hard on Mary that I'm like, I don't really know Jesus, you know, but my experience with Anthony, I guess he was really the first saint that I started working with too, and I got his medal as a birthday gift during 2020, and I got it from a boyfriend at the time, and I had asked for a Joan of Arc medal. So I remember opening up the box and being disappointed and being like, what is this? Who is this person? And like, I had heard of St. Anthony, but I didn't really know anything about him. And I remember looking him up, and it was like, he was this amazing doctor of the church, and he was like really good at church and God and stuff. And I was
Really
like,
good at
this
church.
guy sounds kind of boring. I don't really know. And I even saw this post on this like really cool healer I was working with that had an Anthony picture, and it was like, Anthony is the hammer of heretics. That means he's against witches. You need to be careful about what spirits you're associating yourself with, because you never know. And I think she's actually like, she's since deleted that post and like softened her position, I think, on it. But at the time I was like, Anthony's calling out to me, but oh no, like he's the hammer of heretics or whatever. And so I just kind of like didn't really work with him again, and just kind of like just like left the medal to the side. And then like the synchronicity started coming in, and like I shoot like archery, and I was doing it in my yard, and I started like toying with the idea of like testing it out and being like, Anthony, can you find like an arrow in this giant yard? Every time, the arrow, and I'd be like, okay. And then I started asking him for things like money, and I was like, Anthony, like, you know, because I would read a little bit more about him, and he was like really good during his lifetime of making meals for entire like communities of people who needed food out of nothing. And so like he kind of helps us get like our daily bread, I guess, in that way, and like provide us with resources. And so like the first time I asked him for money, I was like, I'm in a desperate situation, like please help. I don't know what made me think to ask him, but he got me like $500 that week. And the second time I asked for a miracle, I ended up posting like something on Instagram being like, oh, I'm like $45 short of rent. Like if you can buy like a couple pieces of art for me, that'd be awesome. And people started sending me like $50, $100, like $250, like strangers that follow me on Instagram. Like, and I got like the next day I had like $2,000 to like pay off a bunch of bills. And so it's just like, I think Anthony likes to show off sometimes, like because his reputation is like the most miraculous intercessor because he had like the most miracles of I think almost any saint who was alive like while he was alive and was canonized super quickly. And so I think like because people think of him as the most miraculous, he like usually always responds, and sometimes it's extremely flashy. And it just makes you laugh because you're like, okay, I get it. You're like, you're the best. I love you. I know.
Very funny.
Oh
Very
my
funny.
God. I wish Jesus was more of a show off. He needs to show off more because like it's just like, come on, man. Like, can you work with me a little bit? Like, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Gotta get on the St. Anthony train.
I know. That gravy train sounds sweet.
And I also noticed, actually, just for anyone who is listening to this who is interested in working with him, which I highly recommend, is usually when you work with saints, it's important to like build a rapport with them. Definitely like pray. You can give them offerings if they fulfill your petition, like donating to a charity, or you could give them flowers or food or whatever like that particular saint likes. But in my experience, Anthony loves public praise because it's like he's into the PR thing, like continuing to bolster his rep. So like I always try and make an Instagram post, an Instagram story. I try to do a lot of art about him, and I'm actually getting a tattoo of him on my arm on Friday.
I love that so much. I'm so excited to see it. I'm so excited.
I'm going to be a walking billboard for Anthony. We're going to seal the deal, make it official. He and I are a couple forever.
So much. And I also find that he's incredibly easy to start working with. He's not somebody who, you know, in my experience, like light a candle, say a prayer, like ask him, Tony, look around. I don't know. He's very accepting. He's very loving, and his arms are usually pretty wide open, in my opinion. It's a good saint to start with.
Ramona, you shared a story the other day on Instagram about a guitar pick at St. Anthony. Could you share that with our listeners who may not follow you yet on Instagram?
So cute.
Oh my God, this was hilarious. Okay, so I have been writing some music on guitar, and I play with a pick, and you know, it's very easy to lose picks, especially if you're a messy Gemini like myself. And so I picked up this pick and lost it within like 4 minutes. And of course, it's my only pick because I've lost all the other ones. And I like put it down, and I was looking for it for like, you know, 20 minutes. And I had to like do like a live performance on Patreon, and like really needed this pick. Like we're running out of time. And I was like, Anthony, please help, please help. And I was looking around, probably only took like, you know, 7 or 8 minutes, but I was starting to get a little bit panicked. And I walked back over to my desk, and I was shuffling around, and there was a prayer card face down on the table. And I picked it up, and there was the pick. And the prayer card was a St. Anthony prayer card. And his face, like he was face down on top of my pick. And I was begging him, please help me find it, please. And he identified it with his...
He found it.
He identified it with his face. I love it.
And that's how he is. Like, that is his energy in a nutshell.
Like a trickster.
Yes, he's got very much has trickster energy, and I love it. I love it.
Definitely.
So sorry.
Oh my gosh, Ryan is so popular.
No, it's my mom.
Oh goodness, I love that story. I think that's a super sweet story because because like what Ramona said, being a messy Geminis are messy but in an organized way. So I know that it's kind of easy to kind of be down on yourself sometimes when your life is a mess and be like, I need something to hone this in. And I think from what I've learned from Burgundy so far, and now what I've learned from you, I think Anthony is a fantastic person to kind of help me bring order into my life.
You know what I just thought of, that there really needs to be Oh my god, I have to make this Instagram account. Like Yelp reviews of the saints.
Oh,
Ooh,
And
Oh my
why is that not a
god.
thing? That
and
needs
then
to.
and then so the post itself, like I could do like okay, like a Photoshop like fake Yelp page as like the square, and then people can comment with their reviews. Like the reviews can be comments, and they can give like a certain number of
stars. certain
yeah,
number of stars, and then the review.
and then
Or
they could leave
Sacred
all their
Hearts.
miracles.
With
Yeah,
a number of Sacred
Oh
Hearts.
That's genius.
my god.
yo, I'm
is-
starting this account like as soon as the Kickstarter's over.
This is the
I
funniest
love
thing.
that idea. I love that idea.
I love that so
And
much.
I mean, as kitschy and as cute as that sound, that's a wonderful resource for people to share their experiences and be like, oh, I've been thinking about working with so and so. Let's see what other people are saying, because it's so hard to like
I know.
consolidate all of the information that you could possibly get from the internet, from personal testimonies. This is that's just a wonderful way to consolidate as much information into one kind of space where folks can get personal testimonies from people who work with them. That's a great idea.
And it serves as like another public space as an offering to give that praise
Absolutely.
for thanks to that saint. That's
Absolutely.
an awesome idea.
Oh my gosh, you'll have to start brainstorming names. I just quickly searched Yelp for saints. It's not taken on Instagram, but I think we could probably come up with a better name than that.
I love that.
Rate a saint.
Hey, it rhymes.
Rate a saint.
Okay, I'm typing that in. If that's not taken, I'm taking it.
Saint.
No, it's not taken. We're doing it.
That's it.
I love that.
Ramona, that's one of the most wonderful ideas. That's such a good idea. I love it. I love it so much.
I absolutely adore that.
Mhm. Ramona, I want to kind of open the floor up to you. We've been drowning you with questions. Do you have any questions for us that you maybe want to open any sort of conversations?
I would love to hear what other like saints or spirits y'all have been working with that have been inspiring you or that you're excited about.
Today,
Well-
I worked with Saint Lucia today because my aunt is having a cornea transplant for her eyes. So immediately, Saint Lucia. So I was really excited about that today because I'm just believing with all my heart that she's going to get her sight back. So that was a big one for me. So we'll see. So far, so good.
Can you explain to any folks who maybe aren't familiar with Saint Lucia, including myself, why you work with her and what
She
she
is the patron saint of like eyesight.
Oh,
So, and she's also really great for like working with like mal de ojo too. Things like that, like anything involving sight, she is great for.
And she's also like the patron saint of seers and mystics and diviners. So she has that whole like being able to see the unseen kind of element
Exactly.
to her too. Yeah.
Yeah. She's really cool. So
wonderful.
that was my interesting one today.
Right now I'm trying to build a relationship with both Michael and Raphael. Raphael specifically because I work in healthcare, and I think I've spoken about this a couple of times, where I'm working on kind of like a magical ibuprofen, where I draw sigils on a glove, because I'm an occupational therapy assistant, so I work with I do a lot of modalities, like manual modalities, on folks who are experiencing a lot of pain, and sometimes the pain is a barrier when it comes to doing therapy. So like doing exercises and strengthening and all those things, it kind of gets in the I don't want to say it gets in the way. Yeah, it does. It gets in the way. Pain sucks, and it interferes with their therapy. But I have to address the pain before I do anything else. So one of the things that I'm doing is trying to build a relationship with Raphael and working with him in developing and crafting sigils that I can draw on my gloves to use in my manual therapy to help alleviate pain temporarily, so that I'm able to work, do therapy with my patients, so that I'm able to do the things that I'm supposed to do with without as much pain as they're able to tolerate. Do you know what I mean? To bring the pain level down so that I'm able to work with them a little bit more, as opposed to having a higher level of pain. So I'm right now I'm kind of just working, trying to get him to be like more inclined to come to me to work, come to me to my workplace, and kind of just be there with me, so that I can just help my patients.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm also Saint Raphael too for me. I've been working with, or developing a relationship with him for like a month, or a little over a month, I think. It was a few weeks before Michaelmas, I think, is when I started to reach out to him, and that's when I made my Raphael oil, mainly for devotional purposes, but also to help with like mitigate Mercury retrograde and help like healing in all ways, shapes, and forms, whether it's mind, body, and spirit. And man, did he come through. Like I did like a 7-day kind of like feeding the oil with prayer feeding the oil with prayers and incense, and then I brought a small batch of the oil to Michaelmas Mass, and I tried to sit as close to the altar as I could during the transubstantiation ritual, where they turn, for those unfamiliar with Catholic Mass, where they turn the bread and wine into the body and blood of Christ, because there's just so much energy going on in that moment. So I was like holding the oil in between my hands and praying over it, and then added that to like kind of the mother batch, and it's been working wonders. I have a friend who I gave some of the oil to try out for me, or try out for himself to tell me about, and he lives in Oakland, and there's just been a lot of shootings and drive-bys lately, and it's really dangerous over there to be traveling, especially at night. And so he lives in like a not great part, or they live in a not great part of Oakland, and they were saying that sometimes they anoint their neck with the oil, and it's gotten them out of some sticky situations just by like a few minutes. So and for those unfamiliar with Raphael, he's also the patron kind of angel of travel. So I thought that was really, really neat. And then I had one saint that I didn't even reach out to that appeared to me in a dream, who I want to elaborate on this saint in like our episode about saints and things like that. But it was a martyr who had like little to no information about him whatsoever. I didn't even know his name. I received his name in my dream, which is the crazy thing. But Saint Edmund Arrowsmith, who
I love the story.
Who
was a martyr in England. I didn't know anything about his background, his biography, his name, and I woke up after I like got his name in my dream and looked it up, and everything that was like symbolic in my dream correlated with like the background of his life, and it like blew me out of the waters, because I'm like, first of all, who are you? Secondly, why are you like contacting me? So I haven't really reached out or gotten to know him anymore, other than like I prayed a rosary and set out some water for him, but I'm still trying to figure out what to do with that relationship in terms of working with saints. Yeah.
No, every time I hear that story, I get goosebumps. Every single time.
Wow.
That's so dope.
My brother, he was also a monk. He was I think he was a Benedictine monk at an abbey in Oregon, and he eventually left to, or a monastery, I'm sorry. And he was like, yeah, it's like super rare to like a martyr would ever appear to you, let alone in a dream. And I was like, I don't know why, like it happened, but
Wow. Yeah, I wonder if you could like have him come back in a dream. I don't know. It's so like, I feel like I've had a Marian visitation in a dream. Like I've seen her, but she hasn't like said anything. And I just find it so difficult. Like I can't ever like get spirits to come in dreams when I want them to. It just seems like so random, you know?
It's never when you want it.
Yeah, it's true.
Absolutely.
But I hope you get to like speak with Edmund
Arrowsmith.
No, we're gonna call him Aerosmith because that's so punk.
Well, okay, so I'll tell you one part of the story. It was crazy, and his in the dream, the name coming to me was Brian. It was like Brian of like Tully or something. And so I Googled that. I was like, are there any saints named Brian? Well, it turns out his name he received when he was baptized was Brian. But then when he became a monk or priest or whatever, then he took on the name Edmund Arrowsmith.
My God.
I know.
I don't want to poke fun at your dream because it's a beautiful story, but I just like visualize like Steven Tyler like coming down from your ceiling and like this bright white light singing fucking it looks like a lady, you know what I mean? It's such a cool story, man. That's awesome. Wow. So awesome. I have a question. I told you guys it was my car got broken into 2 days ago. I love my car. But there's something attached to it that's bringing me a lot of grief because I've had the car for 5 years, and in those 5 years I've had 5 things happen to it, like in regards to like accidents and people breaking into it and stuff like that. So who would you recommend to help protect my car and folks in it, and also folks, you know, how do I do some car magic with while also working with a saint?
I would say Raphael for sure.
Like Saint Christopher, maybe,
or Christopher. Raphael or Christopher, I think would be the best bets.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I was already thinking of, drawing some sigils on my. Excuse me. I was already thinking of drawing sigils onto my windows and onto my steering wheel and things like that. But I just need that extra oomph.
Maybe getting like a saint medal of Raphael or Christopher and hanging it from the rearview mirror
too, and the box.
Yeah. Okay.
I also feel like Michael, I call on Michael and Raphael whenever I go in the car because he can do like a fiery wall of protection. Mm-hmm. But also too, if you feel like there's something attached to the car itself. Earlier when you were talking about Raphael and trying to call on him for your healing work, I felt like I was really hearing like Jesus, like that that could be someone you might have some success with, like
Jesus, take the wheel.
Oh my God!
Literally. It's like, please do. Yeah, no, I do think that here's the thing. This is a longer story. I feel like the last incident that I had might have been a little bit of divine intervention, and it was actually Ryan who brought that forth to me, because the individual who broke into my car might have some sort of it might be a little neurodivergent, and I feel might have not done it just because he was a bad person. I feel like there might have been an issue with some sort of thing when it comes to like resources and him not being able to access help and things like that. And so I do think there was a little bit of like, yo, I know that you're upset because your window is broken, but you can fix your window, but this I think you need to do a little bit of magic to help this person also kind of get the help they need. So I do feel like, because I do call upon Christ when I drive to work, that's one of the times where I pray. So I do, he's very, I feel, God, I hope so, that we do have a good relationship when it comes to, protecting me while I'm traveling, because Jesus is the person that I, call upon when it comes to me driving to work, or if I'm on a plane. I always visualize when I'm on a plane, literally him like carrying the plane across the sky, you know what I mean? So I know that I have a pretty good relationship with him when it comes to protecting me while I travel, and also my loved ones and my friends. I always call upon him when I tell my friends to like get home safely and things like that. So I just wanted to, maybe he needs a little bit of backup on my everyday kind of things, you know what I mean, just to help me get through the week sometimes. So that's why I asked.
Fonzie, can we have a check-in on time so we can figure out
where's my
just how long the thing's going for?
Yes, we have about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
Yeah, we're almost at that mark.
I know it's super late for you, Ramona, so thank you for
Yes.
Yeah, thank you
joining
so
us.
much again for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Could you drop your handles for all your things once more? And then did you touch on the date for when the Kickstarter ends so we can let our audience know?
Yeah, no, I didn't. It's from October 31st to November 29th, which will be the day after Advent. So yeah, 29 days. So,
And we can link all of that in the show notes too. So that
Yes, we can.
everyone
okay, cool.
Yes, and if anyone's looking it up right now, Ramona, if Ramona has a link tree in her Instagram, so that you can go and click all the links.
Yeah, and that again is at BY_RAMONA_MARTINEZ. And you can find me through the Visions of Mary page too, at Visions of Mary. And you'll find Chris's profile there if you want to check out his amazing writing about tarot, which often has kind of a scriptural or Kabbalistic or magical bent to it. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much again for joining us, Ramona. This was super insightful, and thank you so much for just sharing your practice and experiences. I think our favorite thing here is just hearing about people's practices and experiences, especially in a Christian Catholic context.
Totally, and I just love hearing so much about like people's miracles and like personal experiences with the saints and stuff. Like this conversation has definitely inspired me to get to know Jesus better. Oh my gosh, how many times do you say that? This conversation has inspired me to know Jesus.
Yeah.
That could be
Never.
You could say that in like a bad way to someone. Like this conversation has inspired me.
Makes me want.
I need Jesus now.
Right. It's it's very that where it's just like you need Jesus, and I'm like, well, I think I need Jesus too. Like, really into it.
Thank you so much, y'all.
Yeah, thanks, Ramona.
Oh my gosh, stop thanking us. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this was absolutely wonderful. This is one of the best conversations I've ever had. I loved it so much. Well, with that said, thank you so much to anyone who has been tuned into this special episode with our guest Ramona. I am Fonzie. I am at Witchalumicente on Instagram.
And I'm Ryan. You can find me at the Mestizo Mystic.
I'm Burgundy. You can find me at Prayers and Florals on Instagram.
And we will see you on the next episode of our Unholy Communion.